I am going to say I've been in Los Angeles for 8 years. Before that, I had never lived outside of my home state of Ohio. And all I can say is that the Laker fans not only love their team, rock with who plays for their squad, but they understand and appreciate its history. And I don't even know if I could speak to misconceptions as much as just to say I have a full understanding or a better understanding of how real that is now that I'm in it. And it's awesome. It's beautiful. They have an edge that they carry with them, and rightfully so. They've got the number of banners hanging in the rafters. They've got the history. They've got the legends. I work alongside a few of them who also give back, dedicate, appreciate, from the Bus family, from the Minneapolis Laker days, etc.
She is a silent reporter for the NBA on Amazon Prime. She is a studio host for Spectrum Sports Net covering the Los Angeles Lakers. And she is the host of the Road Tripping podcast. We welcome Allie Clifton onto Hoopsology. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Thanks for coming on. Truly appreciate it. Before we delve into your career, just your overall thoughts of the NBA, we have a bit of a tradition on our show. We cover basketball culture. So, of course, we jump into the hottest topics concerning the world of basketball, but we delve into just the sport, what makes it so great, what separates it from the rest of just the sports out there. So take this question any way you want it. What is your first or favorite basketball memory?
First or favorite basketball memory? Well, I'll take it towards just a personal side of things, because for me, obviously, I've played basketball since I was a wee little bitty child. I first started playing basketball in the second grade. I have an older sister and a younger brother, and the first basketball team that I played on was at our local YMCA. I'm from a very small hometown called Vader, Ohio, 10,000 people, so very, very small. And at that age, it was co-ed basketball. So it was myself, my sister, so just two girls, and the rest were boys. And I just remember thinking that that's exactly what it was supposed to be, from that standpoint. And I didn't know any better, nor did I care. I loved it. So I just remember getting new basketball shoes. They weren't anything awesome or great. I thought they were, at the time, high tops, getting our t-shirts, our team t-shirts. My neighbor was our coach. His two sons played. I'll never forget. And we would go to practices together once a week. And then every Saturday, I would go out and I would try to be like the best player on the floor. And I was just a young little girl. But I remember then, like, this is fun. The team element, the team aspect. My sister, I'm 5'11", my sister's 6'2". She's been that way since she was in middle school, grade school. So I would always be able to just kind of lob it inside to her, and she would score the basketball. I think just that kind of chemistry and camaraderie, looking back now, that our parents put us into at a very young age, kind of tells a story and is a small part of where I am now. So I would say that that's my first basketball memory.
So how did that translate into your broadcasting career? Can you just start to discuss the origin story, in terms of, how you started your career, just kind of maybe the trials and tribulations you had to experience in terms of where you ended up today?
Yeah, for sure. I think from that point, playing on the co-ed youth basketball team, to the way in which my sister and I both handled basketball workouts, volleyball workouts, off-season workouts as high school kids, we were always playing with the guys. We were invited to the football workouts. We were invited to the boys basketball team workouts after hours, and just always found ourselves comfortable in a space that, it provided challenges. It provided a different level of physicality, etc., from a standpoint of just kind of pushing us outside of our comfort zone, which is a big motto of mine, finding comfort in the uncomfortable. And so I think when I think about it from second grade through high school to now, in my profession, a woman in a male dominated profession, which I know so many women are holding their own and making names for themselves in the best way, it is just really cool. It's special. I think when you think of the origin of my story as a professional broadcaster, I thought I was going to be a teacher. My father, my family members, so many of them are in the education system. My dad just retired of 40 plus years in public education. And so when I went to play college basketball at the University of Toledo, I thought as a freshman, let me just declare my major. I'm going to be a teacher, 4 to 9, math and science, done. I'll just go to school, do the thing. But then by the time my senior year came around and I knew that I was, my playing career was coming to an end, I was like, I'm not done with sports. I don't want to be done with it just yet. So I changed my major quickly, got into sports broadcasting, back around. I was a graduate assistant in our weight room at the University of Toledo, and every athlete except football, all the while dipping my toes in local sports media markets, doing, behind the camera work, in front of the camera for local sports highlights, as well as calling games for a local TV station, BCSN. And then I got the call to be the sideline reporter for the Cleveland Cavaliers in Fox Sports Ohio. And so I just think here I am as a young female at the time. I was 24 years old, breaking into the NBA industry from a broadcasting standpoint. And yet I'm comfortable. The game of basketball has been a part of my life since I was young, as I mentioned. And when I stepped between the lines the very first time, I looked to my left and my right, and half the time it was men. It was young boys at the time. And now here I am sharing a locker room with them from a professional standpoint, doing my job and getting to do what I love. So it's funny how it all kind of has come full circle when I think about how I started with the game of basketball to where I am now. It still has its challenges every day that come with live television, that come with the involvement of the sport, staying up to date with all the facts, etc. But that's what I live for. However, at the core of it all is something that's just always felt comfortable for me. It's something that I feel like I've known for a really long time.
What have you noticed just through covering the league that fans don't appreciate or that kind of goes unnoticed? I'm just thinking, I talked to Kristen Lello a few years ago, prominent broadcaster, and she pointed out that, she's great. And she pointed out something about with NBA players, because I think with fans, including myself, you kind of automatically assume that all these players just love playing basketball all the time. We forget this is their job. This is an occupation. They're going to work. And I think we, as fans, we forget that. And she talked about how a lot of them sometimes just have, some of them may not love it. They're doing it for other reasons besides the love of the game. So just curious, what have you observed in terms of just the players you've interviewed in terms of their relationship with the game of basketball that fans may overlook or may not just appreciate?
It may seem cliche. It may seem like something that we just turn our eye to because we do look at them as superhuman or supernatural, and you want them to do exactly what you paid your ticket to go see and watch. But at the end of the day, through my career and being able to cover these individuals for the last decade plus, is that they're more than just basketball players. Kristen touches on a great point that you just mentioned of some may not love it to that degree. And that may shock you, but I think at the end of the day, we tend to forget that their husbands, their fathers, their sons, right? Their family members, their family, and they have also other passions. So I remember when we started firsthand, I remember this, when we started the Road Trippin podcast after the Cavs had won that championship in 2016, and there was some feedback on, if the Cavs had lost a game and we had dropped an episode, which, by the way, we would land in a city, we would go to someone's hotel room, we would record an hour, go about our business. They would go to team dinners, they would go watch film, they would go get up shots, whatever. 1 hour out of the day. And people would think that we were doing the worst thing that you could imagine in terms of, shouldn't they be watching film? Shouldn't they be studying? Shouldn't they be getting shots up? That's not the reality. There's too much time in the day that they should be worrying about families. They should be taking care of their children. They should continue to be fathers while they're on the road, right? Or playing the game that they love. They should be thinking about other passions and hobbies. Iman Shumpert was a guy that I always admired because of his musical capabilities and talents. Kyrie shared on our podcast about these endeavors that are now coming to fruition of wanting to own a farm and land and, help supply families with actual needs. Sports are incredible. They're powerful. And these athletes, they do oftentimes, they allow so many people to forget about maybe what they don't want to be thinking about for those 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And I get that. And it's a blessing and it's amazing. But let's not forget that they have those moments too. And I think that's something that I've enjoyed and loved, getting to meet these athletes as people first, and I think that's sometimes things that we take for granted.
Yeah. Absolutely. I kind of want to get your opinion in terms of your overall experience. This podcast started during the pandemic, and we talked to a lot of journalists at that time about the restricted access and the things in terms of I feel like a journalistic aspect of somewhat gone back to normal. We talked to journalists saying that they still haven't gotten their full access compared to before 2020. It's kind of gauging your opinion, kind of what's kind of the evolution in terms of entering the field, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and then afterwards. Just curious in terms of just the media access and the relationship between media and player. Can you talk about that in terms of how it is in 2025? Do you think things are pretty much back to normal in terms of a relationship standpoint between the media and player? Do you think, really 2020 really changed things in terms of that player and media relationship?
Um, there was a stretch where I wondered if it would ever get back to the way things had been prior. Um, I will say I started my career on the road traveling pretty heavily, like no office. I didn't have an office. I didn't have a desk, none of that. That was pretty much the practice facility and at the arena. And then when I came out here to LA, I'm a little bit more removed because of my role as studio host. But it feels as much as I am around, it feels like access is back to where it used to be. It did take a little bit to get there, but I also respect and understand why. Um, Access is such a important part of what we do, I think, in this business, and I think that it's the door to understanding, as kind of what I just touched on, these athletes as people and as humans, but it's also an opportunity for us to really cover the sport and give it the amount of coverage that it deserves. And so I'm glad to know and feel that it's kind of returned to that form. I do also think, just as humans, there is a level of still like personal space.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things is that kind of the 10 feet kind of, or however the distancing, right? That still kind of holds true. And those are kind of things I appreciate now that I didn't think about before. But the access and the opportunities to talk to players, tell their stories, talk to coaches, etc. It may not happen as often as we like, but it's there. I think that we can all agree that we're always going to want more. But from what I've been around, and especially stepping into this new space for the first few weeks and seeing it from a national perspective, teams, PR staffs, they do a good job from my vantage point.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to transition to the Lakers and just the culture of the team, and I want to start with the fan base. What is kind of the biggest misconception about the Laker fan base, the relationship between a fan and just the LA Lakers? I just think, they're the glamour franchise of sports. I would say them and really the Yankees, I would say. And I just feel might be some misconceptions in terms of kind of what the Lakers mean to the community of Los Angeles. Can you talk about that in terms of just what you have noticed, just in terms of just the fans really grasping upon just the Lakers themselves, and really what I've heard in terms of fans really gravitating towards when Kobe was there was fans specifically cheering on Kobe, not the Lakers. And I'm just wondering in 2025, do you find that to be the case in terms of especially Luka coming in recently, and LeBron's been there for a long time? Where's kind of that fan relationship between people attending Crypto Arena and just the Lakers on the floor?
I am going to say I've been in Los Angeles for 8 years. Before that, I had never lived outside of my home state of Ohio. And all I can say is that the Laker fans not only love their team, rock with who plays for their squad, but they understand and appreciate its history. And I don't even know if I could speak to misconceptions as much as just to say I have a full understanding, or a better understanding, of how real that is now that I'm in it. And it's awesome. It's beautiful. They have an edge that they carry with them, and rightfully so. They've got the number of banners hanging in the rafters. They've got the history. They've got the legends. I work alongside a few of them who also give back, dedicate, appreciate, from the Bus family, from the Minneapolis Laker days, etc. There is a genuine respect and appreciation of a standard that has been set, that has never wavered. And it's something, as just a competitor of myself, that I've loved. being a part of. A fun story that I like to tell is when I covered the Cavs, I was per game and it was seasonal. So my first 2 years, the Cavs did not make it to the postseason. So I lived in Toledo after I graduated with my master's, and I would move to Cleveland in August, September. And then I returned home those first 2 years back to Toledo, the Toledo area, in April. The next 4 years, it was September through June. Moved back to Toledo for a couple of months and then would return when season happened, right? Because we went to the finals for those 4 years. When I came out and got this Laker position, I knew there were shows. And for that job, I did attend practice every day with the Cavs. And I did travel, etc. So I was busy. There wasn't a lot of downtime. But when there wasn't a Cavs game, I wasn't on air. I was in practice, but I wasn't on air. Fast forward, I come out here to cover the Lakers. I know that there's going to be non-game day Laker shows. Stay with me. I say that because I talk to people around the league, colleagues, who are like, oh, you guys do shows on non-Laker game days. And I'm like, yeah. So I remember meeting with my boss to sign that contract. And not only did I realize that there was non-game day Laker shows that I wasn't accustomed to for my first 6 years in the league, but then in the off season, there were 3 shows a week. And I thought to myself, I think I even said it out loud, what do we cover? And they said to me, it's the Lakers. You'll see. And it's so true. You will always have something to cover, and it's a testament to this franchise. And rightfully so.
It's 24/7.
All the time.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I want to get your just feelings when Luka came to town. What was that night like when that trade went down? What were you doing? Was it like kind of like an emergency situation? Were you shocked? Did you think it was just like a hoax online? What were your kind of feelings on that?
So the Lakers had just beat the Knicks in the Garden. I think they had won maybe 5 in a row. Things were rolling. If I'm not mistaken, LeBron wasn't playing or AD was out. AD was out, I believe. Yeah, AD was out, was not with the team in New York. And things had still been rolling without him. Obviously, it always just felt like a big gap defensively and so forth. So we had just got off the air from doing Knicks Lakers. It was a big win. James Worthy, big game was there. Our Laker insider, Mike Bresnahan. It was just us 3 because it was a national broadcast. And we all got in our cars to drive away. And not even 2 seconds later, the Shams tweet happened. And just like I feel like everyone, we all paused. Text chains were blowing up. We didn't think it was real. And we were all in shock. I ended up having to go meet some friends and family at a wedding reception. And everyone was talking at the wedding reception that I was attending. Is this real? Oh my gosh. Like, what happened? Is this so stunned? I mean, just like everyone. And for all the things that as hoopers and those that have covered the sport could imagine. But, I love Max Christie. I love Anthony Davis. I was a part of the 2020 championship as a broadcaster with AD and LeBron, 1-on-1 of talent. But the gravity and the player, the individual that Luka Dončić is, speaks for itself. 26-year-old superstar who is touching on, is in, if not barely into the prime of his career. It's incredible. And I remember last season just thinking, wow, we get to watch this every single night. We get to cover this every single night. And now Luka 2.0, however you want to describe it, and just getting to see him and his personality and that comfort level as well off the floor, because I value them as players as well. Watching that, observing that silently has been incredible. I feel very fortunate. I've covered some awesome players in this league throughout my career, and he's certainly one of them at the top.
So what separates him from the other superstars that you've covered? Or are there just similarities? Every superstar has certainly traits that they share, but do you see anything different with Luka, especially being in Los Angeles, that you have observed so far?
Yeah, I think more stylistically in the way in which he plays the game. Some guys that come to mind that I've covered, LeBron and Kyrie, Kevin Love, all 3 and their different ways, those championship years in terms of stars. Dwayne Wade, it was certainly at the end, but just being around the energy when he played those last few months of his last couple of years in Cleveland. And then, up close with Anthony Davis and LeBron here in LA, and Luka, just his size, his skill, it's all the things that we know, right? But I think the one thing that continues to amaze me and separates him is the putting it all together at the young age. Like, he's been doing this for so long, and it's like he just gets bored. He's that good. He just gets bored. There's not an ounce of the game, especially offensively, the package, the mind, the brilliance, the passes, the court vision, all of that appreciation. And then, of course, the superstars and the ones that are at the top, that he's obviously in that category of just the killer instinct and the mindset, which I can't wait for him to have moments like that more consistently in this position this year, right? We saw a little glimpse of it last year when he got traded here, but this is a different feel, energy, vibe with Luka. And I think all of that plays a part in who he is, the player that he is, and what helps to kind of separate him. But the offensive package is stupid. And for those of you that know, it's stupid in the best way possible. No. If you're a Laker fan or a Luka fan.
Right. No, I'm definitely a Luka fan. He's incredible. Yeah. I want to point out another Laker, and he's been getting a lot of steam, and that's Austin Reaves. Can you talk about his ascension? And with this season in particular, with LeBron returning last night after recording out this podcast, where do you see his evolution with this team? Because I honestly see this guy as a borderline superstar on this team. And I heard some other analysts talk about his role. He shined when he was with the second unit. But with LeBron and Luka, I think rightfully so, the guys are Hall of Famers. But I think Reaves kind of slots into that third position there. Where do you see him in terms of kind of his projection, kind of your opinion of his rise and ascension? Because certainly for me, just being on the outside looking in, it is quite a shock, but he's phenomenal. And I think he's been great in terms of what he's been able to do with the Los Angeles Lakers.
I think, one, you can look at his, from betting on himself as an undrafted player, choosing to bet on himself as an undrafted player first and foremost. It starts there. Two, every single year you look at the numbers, he's just progressed. He's gotten better and better each year. It's a fact. The work ethic, the mind, and the IQ, it is things that you can't teach, right? And I think that the handles package is impressive. What he's able to do with the basketball, they call it paint to great, right? The paint touches, his ability to get inside, to weave in and out. I watched Kyrie for so many years. I came into the league his second year in the NBA, and I'm not comparing Austin Reaves to Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has, hands down, arguably in my mind, one, if not top handles, right, in the NBA. But there's a certain level and gear in which you can get to when you do have sort of a handles package with your offensive game. And that's something that I think Austin just has continued to master. And he doesn't get outside of himself. He doesn't try and be someone that he's not. And for that, he flourishes. I think the one thing, though, we're seeing this year where he's taken a leap is understanding who he is, that he is just as much as JJ Redick told us at the beginning of the season and conversations had over the summer with Austin. His value to this team is just as much his as it is Luka and LeBron's. And that's where I think you saw games and moments when Luka was out, LeBron hadn't played yet this year, where he takes it to another level, right? And it's not just scoring. This is leadership. This is glue. This is understanding how important each guy is and roles on the team. This is understanding when to take over, when to facilitate. The little things, again, that you can't teach. And I think that's all a part of this ascension that you're seeing with Austin Reaves, and some things that people, unless you know it, you don't really get it. You don't understand it. But it plays a part. And the man's never met a challenge he didn't like. He'll bet on himself 10 times out of 10. And 11 out of 10 if you let him. And those are just kind of the players and the teammates that you want on your side.
So now that LeBron is back, he returned last night, seemed very happy to return. What are your expectations for this team? Pretty solid start. The West is always killer. It hasn't changed this year. are you seeing this team, and what are kind of your benchmarks that you're looking for, especially as we head towards, the conclusion of the NBA Cup, and then we have MLK Day and then Christmas? Where are you kind of looking at in terms of kind of Laker expectations?
Look, it's a wild, wild west, as you mentioned. The Western Conference is as tough as it gets. I think a week ago when you have that matchup against the league's best, arguably, in the Oklahoma City Thunder, what they did to not just the Lakers that night, but the night before, the Golden State Warriors, and the way in which they did it, they're still the top of the top. They're the defending NBA champs, and they deserve that. But, the Houston's, the Denver Nuggets, teams that you kind of see in that path. Look, the Lakers control their own destiny. They control so much of what they want to be, who they want to be. They've got a great head coach and a coaching staff in JJ Redick and the team around him. They've done such a good, they're tireless, relentless workers. They're smart, they're intelligent, and they've got such a great poise with this squad. To be 11-4 as we're recording this right now, understanding you've done it without the league's all-time leading scorer. And say whatever you want about LeBron, but his presence, what he still manipulates and dictates, the power he has on the floor in terms of reading defenses, obviously the passing, getting others involved, the empowerment as teammates. Games without Luka, you had a couple without Austin Reaves. JJ Redick has got this team to buy in. The one thing you do know you can count on 9 times out of 10 is that they're going to play hard. They're going to have nights where they're still trying to figure it out and put it all together. But I think that's the one thing that as a coach, you don't want to have to waste your time teaching. And he's mastered that. JJ's mastered that. So look, last year they finished third, 50 wins, and they didn't make it out of the first round. So the expectation is always a championship. It's not going to be easy, but they've got a great squad and a great leader that can certainly put them in a position to do so.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's separate number one team in the West and the 8th seed. I don't think there's too much separation there throughout the season. So yeah, it's pretty cool to watch. I want to transition into just the podcast space, and specifically, your podcast, Road Trippin. What have you seen in terms of the evolution of just the athlete podcast space? What have you observed? And you mentioned earlier, just in terms of, your co-host taking criticism for recording a podcast, while, in terms of the heat that they took. Right now, everybody has a podcast. Now it's like it's the normal thing to do as an athlete to create their own brand, have a podcast. What have you just observed through your journey just in the podcast space? And what do you think of all these other athletes kind of jumping in, kind of the podcast pool nowadays?
I love it. Obviously if I said I didn't, I would be lying because it's something that I've held on to and that I've had such pride in since we started it in 2017. It's been through so many iterations, and I feel like we're really catching steam and have settled in such a great space with where we are right now with Road Trippin'. To your point, I feel like every day you learn of a new athlete driven podcast. But I think that's a sign of just people wanting to take ownership of their voice and who they are and what they want to be known for. And a lot of that's outside of sport. A lot of that is an opportunity to maybe take the game, no matter what sport it is, and break it down in a different way, like you're seeing with Mind the Game. As an example, I think it also will show you exactly who's really about it and who's not. Because if there's one thing we know, it's not easy. The cadence, the consistency, the work that goes into having a successful podcast is not easy. And so I've learned that over the years. I've loved seeing, like I said, athletes and people around the sport want to take on that challenge and dive in and see those that have been successful with it. I think it's awesome. Again, we took Road Trippin' from was actually just done on road trips. So maybe we got one a road trip. Maybe it was 3 a road trip. You just never knew. Where we all shouted in a microphone and one wine glass, and we were all just shouting into it to now having a full blown show. And guys retiring, guys moving city to city, taking on new jobs. I mean, Richard Jefferson is the face on the game side. Kendrick Perkins, face on the studio side for ESPN. Channing went from Turner to possibly now with ESPN, owning his own wine business. Family's growing and it's awesome and we love it. But the reason why we do it is because of our motto that's been there since day one, and that's no one tells our stories better than us. And I think that goes for a lot of athletes that you're seeing dive into this space. They want to have control over their voice And it's something that I am a big believer in.
It's pretty awesome. To that point, what do you see next in the evolution of that? Do you think athletes will take that to the next level? Or do you think there will be kind of a barrier there between, even though, like, of course, you've seen athletes, create their own podcast, but that'll kind of be it. Do you kind of see them further creating their own media kind of empires there in terms of taking it to the next level? Or do you see it kind of, there'll be kind of a line there in terms of what they want to do and kind of controlling their own brand and voice?
Look, I think that streaming is awesome. I think there's a casualness to podcasting that we certainly fell in love with, right? Especially a lot of people in our group that works on linear television. But I also think that there is space and possibly that being the future of podcasting, turning it into linear shows and television. I know that's a statistic that we look at when it comes to, our ratings with YouTube, how many people watch it via a screen versus a device, right? Like, so, is that the next phase of all of this? Only time will tell. But if you want to be in it, you got to be ready to evolve with it. That's the one thing I've learned. So who knows?
Yeah.
If anyone wants to pay Road Trip in the big dollars to go put us on television, we will sign up in a heartbeat.
Final question for you. What are some other observations you've seen around the league this season? Just watched a video online about this kind of the recent increase of injuries to star players. And also it's been some great games in the beginning of this season. Lots of, buzzer beaters, overtime, really competitive games in both conferences. What have you observed this season that's caught your eye? Kind of different than kind of the mainstream narrative that other people are talking about.
I think all in all, obviously I'm biased. I cover the league. I love the sport. The league is in a great place from a talent standpoint, from a production standpoint, from guys that are young in their careers to the old heads, God love them, the Stephen Currys, the Kevin Durants, the LeBron James. Who's going to be the face of the league? I don't know, nor do I care, because you got a lot of guys that they could do it by collective. They could do it by committee. They could do it by whatever it is. Don't sleep on it. As well as don't sleep on the LeBron James, the Stephen Currys, the Kevin Durants. This isn't more so, I guess, you asked, this is me just being passionate, I guess, about the NBA, of things that I'm observing. Like, let's not wish these games away. Let's not wish these opportunities away. LeBron James in season 23 looking like he's still 25. Stephen Curry had the chance to cover them in Wemby in a cup game last Friday, and Steph drops 49 after dropping 46 at the age of 37. Like, Victor Wembanyama, what? The competitiveness. I hope he gets healthy soon. I mean, Draymond Green having an opportunity to be a part of an all defensive team for 10 times in his career. And yet he's still stacking up next to guys like Victor Wembanyama at 21. I mean, there's just such goodness with the NBA. And I think sometimes narratives can kind of cloud that. And you've got the Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders, you've got the young guys, you've got the Luka Dončić, you've got one of the great Nikola Jokic's in terms of the MVP race and what the Detroit Pistons are doing. Like, it's special, it's fun, and every single night you can turn on the television and it's going to be someone new, some team new doing something that makes you want to watch more. And that's just from my vantage point. The injuries suck. You're right. There's the whatever the storyline is about the face of the NBA, just appreciate the game, appreciate the sport. And I think it's in a great space, and it's only going to be for years to come.
I agree. And I think there's a lot of value. Just, typically league pass kind of get a bad rap in terms of maybe not the glamour teams on there. But nowadays you turn on a game, there's usually a couple of players to watch that's going to have a huge impact on the face of the league in years to come. I think,
and not to be too biased, not to cut you off either, but you just brought up a great point. It's like with the new TV rights deals, the NBCs, the Peacocks, the Amazons, the ESPN, the coverage of it all, like, truly, you're giving the fans what we want. That's incredible matchups. That's front and center. That's the opportunity to watch it on League Pass. I mean, it's just what's not to love about the coverage and the opportunity to watch the young players and those that have given the game so much. And we get to do that for the next several months, and we shouldn't take it for granted.
Yeah, I certainly do, especially with the TV coverage this year. I think a lot of new voices. I think the broadcast space, I think, became a little bit stagnant over the years. I think this year's been a breath of fresh air, just in terms of just different coverage, leading into nostalgia, but yet, with Amazon leading into the future. And just, just everybody has their own interpretation of how the game should be presented, and it creates, just a lot of different voices in the game that we all love. So I think that's been awesome to observe, and I think your guys' work on Prime, it should be noted, because I think it's been fantastic so far. No, it's only been the beginning of the season, but I think that's been noticeable in terms of just fans really just enjoying the game, and not it's easy to become negative. I think that's kind of the nature of sports fans sometimes. But
like you said,
I think there's been a lot of positivity. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of positivity during the first part of the season. So credit to you all in doing that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Allie, it's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much. Can you please let our audience know where you're located on social media, if you can have any upcoming projects, anything else you want our audience to be aware of as well?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on there, Clifton, as well as the Trippin podcast. Very active there. If you're in the LA area, I do cover the Lakers studio host, as you mentioned at the top, and then Prime on Fridays. So you can find me a little bit of everywhere. On Twitter, Allie Clifton, and I'm on TikTok somewhere. I don't know what my handle is, but it's one of those combinations. I'm in the game, I'm around the game, and I love it. So
awesome. Allie, thank you very much for the time. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Justin. Thank you.